Imagine walking into a high-end restaurant where every table gleams with fine china. Sparkling chandeliers light up the room, and the scent of exquisite dishes fills the air. That's exactly where two wealthy women, dressed in glamorous evening gowns, find themselves tonight. Confident and accustomed to the best, they settle in for a luxurious dining experience. As the waiter approaches to serve their table, their smiles quickly fade. One woman exchanges a glance with the other, her voice dripping with arrogance. They hire anyone these days, don't they? She scoffs, loud enough for the young server to hear. His hands tremble slightly, but he maintains his composure, determined to provide excellent service despite the sting of their words. The evening continues with more remarks, each more demeaning than the last. But just as the women are about to congratulate themselves on their flawless evening out, something unexpected happens. A well-dressed man walks up to their table, his eyes set firmly on the women. He's not just anyone. He's the restaurant's owner, and what he reveals next leaves the women completely speechless. What happens when arrogance meets a surprising twist? You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. Stay tuned. The waiter, still polite despite the women's rude remarks, continues to serve with care. He refills their glasses, clears empty plates, and ensures every detail of their meal is perfect. But their laughter, filled with condescension, only grows louder. Maybe they're lowering the hiring standards just to cut costs. One of the women sneers, barely glancing at the young man as she waves him off. Nearby, the restaurant hums with elegance, couples enjoying quiet conversations, the soft clinking of silverware against fine china, and the faint melody of classical music playing in the background. But there's a shift in the atmosphere when a distinguished man in a tailored suit strides confidently toward the women's table. His presence commands attention. Even the other diners steal curious glances. The women barely notice him at first, too preoccupied with their own conversation. But when the waiter stands up straighter at the sight of the man, a hint of recognition flickers across his face. There's a quiet exchange of nods between them. The suited man stops at their table, his expression calm yet unreadable. "Ladies," he greets with a firm voice, "I hope you're enjoying your evening." His tone is polite, but there's an underlying edge that hints at something more. The women glance up at the man, their smug expressions faltering slightly. He has an air of authority that's hard to ignore. Still, one of them forces a polite smile. "The evening's fine," she replies, her voice sugary sweet. Though we did have concerns about the service. She casts a pointed look at the young waiter, who stands quietly, his hands now folded behind his back. The man's eyes shift between the women and the waiter. There's a flicker of something, pride, maybe even protectiveness, in his gaze. "Concerns, you say?" he asks, his tone even but deliberate. "That's unfortunate. We take service very seriously here." The second woman, emboldened by the attention, chimes in. "Exactly. A place like this should hire people with a bit more polish," she says with a dismissive wave. "No offense," she adds insincerely, glancing at the waiter. The suited man's lips tighten, but he keeps his composure. "Interesting," he says thoughtfully, leaning slightly forward. "Because I personally hired him." The women exchange startled glances. They weren't expecting that. Before they can respond, the man continues, his voice calm but firm. "In fact, I handpick every employee here. And there's a reason I chose him." The women blink in disbelief, their confident demeanor slipping. One of them forces an uneasy laugh. "Well, I suppose loyalty is admirable," she says, trying to recover. "But surely standards matter too." The man's eyes remain steady. "Standards absolutely matter," he replies, his tone sharp enough to cut through the tension. which is exactly why I hired someone like him. Hardworking, respectful, and skilled. His words hang heavy in the air, and the once vibrant dining room now feels eerily quiet. Nearby guests have begun to notice the exchange, their curious glances adding to the growing unease. The waiter shifts slightly, his face a mix of humility and pride. He doesn't speak, but the weight of the moment is clear in his eyes. The women fidget, clearly uncomfortable under the watchful gaze of the restaurant owner. "Look," one of them says, forcing a smile. "We didn't mean to cause any trouble. We were just having fun." Fun. The man's voice drops to a measured calm. "Do you think humiliating someone who's doing his best is fun?" The women's faces pale. "Because I see it differently," he continues, his voice growing firmer. "And since we're speaking frankly, there's something about me you clearly don't know." The women exchange uneasy glances, their confidence unraveling. "What do you mean by that?" one of them asks, her voice wavering. The man pauses for a moment, as though deciding how much to reveal. His expression is calm but unreadable, and the tension thickens. "You see," he begins, "this isn't just a restaurant to me. It's a part of my family's legacy. And every person I hire is treated with the same respect I'd expect for my own family." His gaze sharpens, including him. He gestures toward the waiter, who now stands a little taller, clearly emboldened by the man's words. The room seems to grow quieter as diners lean in, sensing that something important is unfolding. The women sit frozen, unsure of how to respond. But before they can say anything, the man continues. "And here's something you probably didn't expect to hear. He's not just a waiter." He smiles faintly, but there's a knowing edge to it. The women look at each other in confusion. "Not just a waiter." One echoes nervously. "That's right," the man confirms. "In fact, he's someone very important to this restaurant." He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. "And by the time this evening is over, you'll understand exactly why." The women's confusion deepens. They glance nervously at the waiter, who now appears far less ordinary in the glow of the moment. The suited man's voice carries a quiet authority as he leans in. "Let me make this clear. He's not just important to the restaurant because of his role. He's important because he's my son." A stunned silence falls over the table. The women's eyes widen in shock, their smug expressions evaporating instantly. One of them opens her mouth to speak, but quickly closes it, at a loss for words. The weight of their earlier insults hangs heavy in the air. "I didn't think it was necessary to mention that to our guests," the man continues, his voice calm but firm. "We believe in treating every employee here with dignity, regardless of their background or title. Clearly, that's a lesson you've yet to learn." The women squirm, their earlier arrogance replaced by embarrassment. We didn't mean anything by it." One of them stammers, her voice cracking. "Intent doesn't change impact," the man replies, his tone unyielding. "And in this restaurant, respect isn't optional." He looks at the waiter, pride evident in his eyes. "Shall we continue serving our guests, son?" "Absolutely," the young man replies confidently, his voice steady. The atmosphere in the restaurant gradually returned to its elegant hum as the tension lifted. The women, now humbled, quietly shifted in their seats, avoiding the eyes of other diners who had witnessed the scene. Their earlier arrogance had vanished, replaced by a rare moment of self-awareness. The young waiter moved with renewed confidence, a subtle smile on his face. He had weathered the evening with grace, and now stood taller, knowing he had earned the respect of someone who truly mattered. As he served another table, a few diners nodded to him, offering small gestures of encouragement. Meanwhile, the restaurant owner paused beside his son, his expression filled with pride. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said quietly. Thanks, Dad, the young man replied. It wasn't easy, but I'm glad I didn't let them get to me. The man smiled. That's the kind of strength this place was built on. As the evening drew to a close, the women quietly left without further comments. They had learned an unexpected lesson, though neither dared to admit it. Life had a way of humbling even the most entitled. And tonight, dignity, respect, and resilience had taken center stage, leaving an unforgettable impression on everyone who witnessed it.